Hi, I'm Clarence Rambharat, and this is Canboulay, and we are about to do our outlook for 2022. What employees in the workplace should expect to be topical, to be important, and to be happening to them in the year 2022 when we reflect on what has happened in 2021. Well, 2021, wherever in the world you were, was really a difficult year, particularly for employees, particularly for families and school children. I think we all felt the effects of continuing effects, I should say, of COVID-19. And the focus is on the workplace and how COVID-19 has impacted the workplace in particular in the context of workplace bullying, harassment, and some of the things that employees face in the workplace. I think I want to identify 5 things that we should look forward to in terms of the workplace in 2022 based on the 2021 experiences. And I want to talk about 5 things that employees should look for in the workplace, be alert to in 2022. The first is this issue of furloughs. Around the world, we have different things that we call it, but the general word is furloughs, and that is a break in the employment service of the employee. And the things that you should be looking for is the way in which the terms and conditions of your employment are being affected, and the way in which these pandemic requirements are being imposed. You have challenges for it. There is one in the U.S. Supreme Court involving the decisions of the Biden presidency. There are challenges in the Canadian judicial system, and even in Trinidad and Tobago, there are matters making its way in the system, and one matter in which an injunction has been granted in relation to COVID and COVID in the workplace. So furloughs, breaks in service, and being very vigilant in relation to your terms and conditions, and balancing that with what is required to deal with the pandemic. The second thing I would say is that we have to continue to focus on the OHS legislation, the health and safety legislation, and in particular, pay attention to the way in which COVID has affected issues of workplace safety, increasing stress levels among employees, and the possibility that in dealing with health and safety in the workplace, employees could also face harassment. The third thing I would say is that we should look out for the issue of resignations. We've heard about the great resignations and the increasing number of resignations, particularly among younger employees. And we should look at 3 things in particular: resignations, the issue of job abandonment, and the context in which employers can say that you have abandoned the job, and most importantly, constructive dismissal, where employees are put in a position where they have no choice but to leave the job, and that in relation to harassment, in particular bullying, and situations where employers are simply not paying attention, that an employee may leave the job not because they want to and not because they want to abandon the job, but because the employer has made it in such a way that they have no choice, and that's called constructive dismissal. Work from home continues. There was an intention to reduce reliance on that around the world. We see that some employers are continuing it and some employers have made it permanent. And one of the key issues, I want to be very clear on this 4th one, one of the key issues is something called the right to disconnect. Do you have the right to to stop communicating with your employer at a certain point during the workday? What is the workday? Is it 9 to 5? Some employers like to believe it's 24/7. Are you able to be connected right through? Are you required by the terms and conditions to be connected right through? And at what point does your obligations as an employee cease and the issue of workplace harassment start by employers who believe that because you're online all the time, you're supposed to be at work all the time? And the 5th area that I think we will be focusing on in 2022 is the issue of flexible work and those work arrangements. And the 2 things I want to highlight in relation to that is, where does work stop and when does work stop? We have an Air Canada decision recently in terms of where the physical workspace at home stops and where the liability of the employer stops. But when does work stop? And that fits into a lot of concerns that employees have. And it also fits into the 4th one, the right to disconnect. So in 2022, the 5 things I think we're going to be talking a lot about: furloughs and in particular terms and conditions of employment, occupational health and safety, and particular stress in the workplace, resignations and constructive dismissals, issues relating to work from home, and in particular the right to disconnect, and 5th, flexible working arrangements and the issue of when work stops and where does the workplace stop. Thank you very much for following Canboulay, And this is our first for 2022. Happy New Year.